Spain. A land where Roman roads still touch the soil, where castles whisper the secrets of knights and kings, and where the rhythm of flamenco echoes the passions of a people shaped by war, art, empire, and resistance. But Spain is more than its myths. It's a nation born from layers of conquest and coexistence, of gold and blood, of glory and grief. Spain's journey from ancient Iberians to a major empire has really influenced world history in so many ways. This is not just a timeline of events. This is a story of resilience, rebellion, and reinvention. So, whether you're Spanish or simply curious, whether you're here to learn, reflect, or just fall in love with history all over again, this is your invitation. Welcome to the entire history of Spain. Before it was called Spain, before even the Romans marched across its soil, this land was home to a mosaic of cultures and peoples who carved their stories into mountains, painted their lives in caves, and laid the earliest foundations of what would become one of Europe's most iconic civilizations. Our story begins in prehistory. In the caves of Altamira, we find some of the oldest known art in the world: bison, horses, and human hands painted in vibrant ochre and charcoal nearly 36,000 years ago. These weren't just decorations, they were echoes of a spiritual world, a connection between the earliest humans and their environment. By the first millennium BCE, various groups had begun to settle the Iberian Peninsula. Among the most significant were the Iberians, a collection of tribal societies known for their metalwork, warrior culture, and early urban settlements. Along the Atlantic and northern coasts lived the Sults, who migrated from Central Europe and brought with them distinct languages, burial customs, and religious beliefs. It was here, long before any kingdom, that the Celti-Iberians emerged, a fusion of the two major cultures. These warrior tribes would later challenge even the might of Rome. Meanwhile, along the Mediterranean coast, a different kind of influence was arriving. Traders and settlers from the east, the Phoenicians, Greeks, and Carthaginians established ports and colonies. The Phoenicians founded Gadar, modern-day Cadiz, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in Western Europe. The Carthaginians, heirs to Phoenician wealth and naval prowess, set up bases in the southeast, most notably Carthago Nova, modern Cartagena. These external powers weren't just trading, they were shaping. They introduced writing systems, coinage, and religious practices that would permanently influence the peninsula. But the true tectonic shift came in the 3rd century BC. Enter Rome. The Second Punic War between Rome and Carthage turned Iberia into a battlefield. When the Carthaginian general Hannibal crossed the Alps with his elephants, he did so with Iberian soldiers at his side. But Rome retaliated hard. Over the next 2 centuries, they methodically conquered Iberia, fighting fierce resistance from tribes like the Lusitanians and Iberians. Viriathus was a legendary rebel leader who fought against Rome with guerrilla tactics until he was betrayed and killed. Rome eventually prevailed. By the 1st century BCE, Hispanias, they called it, was a fully integrated province of the Roman Empire. And what Rome brought was transformative. Roads, aqueducts, amphitheaters, Roman law, Latin language, and Christianity. Cities like Taraco, Tarragona, Emerita, Augusta, Merida, and Kisaragosta, Zaragoza, flourished under Roman rule. More than infrastructure, Rome offered identity. Hispania wasn't just a province. It was the birthplace of emperors. Notably, Trajan, one of the greatest Roman emperors, was born in Italica, near modern-day Seville. His successor, Hadrian, was also of Iberian origin. By the time the Roman Empire began to decline in the 4th and 5th centuries, Hispania had been Roman for over 600 years. The Iberian Peninsula had been deeply woven into the fabric of the empire. But as Rome's power faded, new tribes looked westward. The Visigoths, a Germanic people, began to push in. The Roman era ended not with a bang, but with a transformation. Rome gave Spain its language, laws, religion, and even architecture. But the story of Spain was only beginning. The fall of the Roman Empire kicked off a wild new chapter full of kings, invasions, and a peninsula torn apart by faith and ambition. As the Roman Empire declined in the west, the power vacuum it left behind opened the door for new rulers to claim the land we now know as Spain. Among them were the Visigoths, a Germanic tribe that swept across the crumbling empire and eventually established their own kingdom on the Iberian Peninsula. The Visigoths had once served as allies to Rome. But by the early 5th century, their ambitions led them to conquer Roman territories in Hispania. They made Toledo their capital and worked to unite the region under their rule. For nearly 300 years, the Visigothic kingdom maintained control over much of the peninsula. They adopted Roman customs, converted from Arianism to Catholicism, and created a legal code that blended Roman law with Gothic tradition. It was an age of uneasy unity, but internal divisions and weak leadership left the kingdom vulnerable. By the early 8th century, civil war had broken out among Visigothic nobles. Rival claimants to the throne fractured the kingdom, making it ripe for invasion. That opportunity came in the year 711, when a Muslim army crossed the Strait of Gibraltar from North Africa, led by a Berber general named Tariq ibn Ziyad. This force quickly defeated the Visigothic king Roderick at the Battle of Guadalete. The Muslim advance was swift and decisive. Within a few years, nearly the entire Iberian Peninsula had fallen under Islamic control. This new Islamic territory became known as al-Andalus. It was not simply a conquest, but the birth of a vibrant new culture. The Muslim rulers brought with them advanced knowledge in science, medicine, mathematics, and architecture. Cities like Cordoba became centers of learning and art. At its Igd al-Andalus was one of the most sophisticated societies in Europe, admired even by its Christian neighbors to the north. But not all of Iberia submitted. In the remote mountains of the north, small Christian kingdoms began to form. Asturias was one of the first, founded by survivors of the Visigothic nobility. The northern regions kept the spirit of resistance alive, sparking a long struggle called the Reconquista to reclaim the peninsula for Christians. It was not a single war, but a long series of conflicts, alliances, betrayals, and cultural exchanges. Christian and Muslim kingdoms clashed, but also traded and coexisted. The borders were fluid, the alliances temporary, and the identity of Spain became more complex with each generation. Throughout the early medieval period, the Iberian Peninsula was a patchwork of cultures and faiths. Muslim emirs ruled the south. Christian kings ruled parts of the north, and in between were regions where Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived side by side, sometimes peacefully, sometimes in tension. The legacy of the Visigoths faded, but their dream of a united Spain would echo in the ambitions of future rulers. Al-Andalus, meanwhile, left a lasting imprint on Spanish identity. From the language to the architecture, from the food to the philosophy. By the end of this era, Spain was no longer a single kingdom or culture. It was a land of contrasts, a frontier between worlds, and a place where the next chapter of empire would begin to take shape. To understand how Spain came to be, we must look at one of the longest and most defining chapters in its history, the Reconquista. This was not just a military campaign. It was a centuries-long transformation that shaped Spain's identity, politics, religion, and even its borders. The Reconquista, or Reconquista, nearly 800 years. It began in the early 8th century when Muslim forces known as Moors crossed from North Africa into the Iberian Peninsula and swiftly conquered most of the region. In 711, a Muslim army defeated the Visigothic king Roderick at the Battle of Guadalete. Within a few years, nearly all of Iberia had fallen under Islamic rule. The new rulers called the land al-Andalus. Under Muslim rule, cities like Cordoba and Toledo flourished as centers of learning, architecture, and culture. While there were times of peaceful coexistence between Muslims, Christians, and Jews, there was also political tension and competition. In the northern mountains of Iberia, however, Christian resistance quietly began to form. The small kingdom of Asturias emerged as the first Christian stronghold. The legendary Battle of Covadonga, traditionally dated to 722, marked a symbolic turning point, led by a nobleman named Pelayo. Christian fighters pushed back against the Moors and claimed a small but significant victory. This was the spark that would ignite centuries of conflict. Over time, more Christian kingdoms began to emerge in the north. Leon, Castile, Aragon, Navarre, and others pushed slowly but steadily southward, reclaiming land piece by piece. The Reconquista was not a single coordinated effort, but rather a series of campaigns, truces, and battles between shifting alliances of Christian and Muslim powers. One major turning point came in the 11th century with the fall of the Caliphate of Córdoba. Internal divisions and civil wars within al-Andalus weakened Muslim control, giving the Christian kingdoms opportunities to advance. Castile and Leon united under Ferdinand I, and Aragon grew in strength. The city of Toledo, once a great Muslim center, was captured by Alfonso VI of Castile in 1085. This was a huge symbolic and strategic gain for the Christian kingdoms. The Reconquista gained momentum in the 12th and 13th centuries. Military orders like the Knights Templar and the Order of Santiago helped lead Christian armies. New waves of religious zeal inspired kings to frame the conflict as a holy war. Crusaders from across Europe even joined in. Cities like Cordoba, Valencia, and Seville eventually fell back into Christian hands. By the late 13th century, only one Muslim stronghold remained in Iberia, the Emirate of Granada. Granada would remain independent for more than 200 years. Even as Christian kingdoms consolidated and grew stronger, it became a tributary state to Castile, paying tribute in exchange for peace. Yet the dream of completing the Reconquista never faded. In 1469, a political and marital union would set the stage for the final act. Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile married, uniting the two powerful kingdoms. Known as the Catholic monarchs, their alliance marked a turning point in Spanish history. Ferdinand and Isabella launched a campaign to capture Granada in 1482. After 10 years of war, in 1492, the city finally surrendered. The last Muslim ruler, Boabdil, handed over the keys to the Alhambra, bringing the Reconquista to a close. This event was more than a military victory. It was a powerful statement of unity, religious authority, and national identity. 1492 is remembered as the year Spain was born as a unified Catholic kingdom, but it was also the year of another major event, the beginning of Spanish exploration and empire. The Reconquista had a lasting impact. It established Catholicism as the dominant faith and deeply influenced Spanish law, language, and culture. It also led to the persecution and expulsion of Muslims and Jews who had lived in Iberia for centuries. In the same year that Granada fell, the Catholic monarchs issued the Alhambra decree, ordering the expulsion of all practicing Jews from Spain. For many, the age of coexistence was over. The long and bloody campaign of the Reconquista defined Spain for generations. It was a conflict that shaped the map, determined religion, and helped forge the very identity of the Spanish people. Out of this struggle, a new power emerged ready to take its place on the global stage. As the 15th century drew to a close, Spain stood on the edge of an extraordinary transformation. The long and brutal Reconquista had finally ended. The Christian kingdoms had reclaimed Iberia, and a newly unified Spain, under the rule of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, was about to reach beyond its shores. In 1492, the very year the Nasrid Kingdom of Granada fell, another event changed the world forever. A Genoese sailor named Christopher Columbus, backed by the Spanish crown, set sail west across the Atlantic. He was not the first to dream of such a voyage, but he was the one who would ignite a new era. When he reached the Caribbean islands, he opened the door to the Americas. It was a discovery that would shape Spain's destiny and define an empire. The Spanish monarchs quickly moved to claim vast lands in the New World. Explorers and conquistadors fanned out across unknown continents, chasing rumors of gold, glory, and Christian conversion. Hernan Cortes brought down the mighty Aztec Empire in Mexico. Francisco Pizarro did the same in Peru, toppling the Inca Empire in a storm of steel and fire. Spain seized unimaginable wealth, especially in silver and gold, flooding Europe's markets and fueling a dramatic rise in Spanish power. But this was not just a story of conquest. Spain also built a vast imperial bureaucracy to govern its new territories. From Mexico City to Lima, Spanish viceroys ruled over millions of indigenous people. Catholic missionaries worked to convert native populations, while settlers brought European language, architecture, and law to the Americas. Colonization was happening everywhere, while Spain rose to power. The marriage of Ferdinand and Isabella had created a powerful dynastic union. Their grandson, Charles I of Spain, became Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor. Under his reign, the Spanish Empire stretched across Europe and the Americas. He ruled over lands from the Netherlands and Germany to Naples and Sicily. It was said that the sun never set on his empire, but such power brought problems. Charles faced constant wars in Europe against France, the Ottomans, and Protestant reformers. He also struggled to manage the sheer scale of his empire. By the time he abdicated in 1556, he divided his territories between his son Philip II and his brother Ferdinand. Philip became King of Spain, ruler of the Spanish Netherlands, and Lord of the New World. Philip II ruled from the mighty El Escorial Palace near Madrid. He saw himself as a defender of Catholicism and Spanish greatness. His reign saw both triumph and tragedy. Under him, Spain crushed the Ottoman fleet at the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. But he also launched the disastrous Spanish Armada against England in 1588. The defeat was a massive blow to Spanish prestige and power. Despite this, Spain remained dominant. Its empire expanded across the Pacific, taking the Philippines and trading with China and Japan. Spanish galleons carried silver from the Americas to Asia and Europe, driving the global economy. Madrid became the center of a world-spanning empire, but beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Spain's economy grew dependent on American silver, leading to inflation and neglect of local industries. The riches of the New World made the Spanish elite lazy and extravagant. Instead of investing in innovation, wealth was squandered on endless wars. The Inquisition silenced dissent and drove out talented minorities like Jews and Muslims. The Protestant Reformation divided Europe, and Spain became locked in religious wars it could not win. As the 17th century unfolded, Spain began a slow decline. It still possessed vast territories, but its military and economic strength weakened. Its rivals, like England and France, grew stronger. Spain's golden age was fading, but its cultural legacy during this era remained dazzling. Artists like El Greco, Velázquez, and Murillo painted masterpieces that still captivate the world. Writers like Cervantes created lasting literary works like Don Quixote, the first modern novel. Spanish architecture and music flourished. It was a time of grandeur and creativity, even as the empire struggled to maintain its grip on global power. By the end of the 1600s, Spain was no longer the unchallenged titan of Europe. It remained an empire, but an aging one. The wars, the debts, and the reliance on colonial riches had taken their toll. And yet, the foundations of modern Spain had been laid. The Spanish language, the global connections, the identity of a unified country, they were now deeply embedded in the Spanish people. The stage was set for new challenges and a new century. As the 1700s began, Spain stood at a crossroads. The powerful Habsburg dynasty had ended with the death of Charles II in 1700. With no clear heir, a major European conflict erupted over who would claim the throne. The War of the Spanish Succession was fought not just in Spain but across the continent. When the dust settled, a new royal family emerged, the Bourbons. Under the Bourbon dynasty, Spain entered a period of reform and centralization. The new kings aimed to modernize the country, improve its administration, and strengthen royal authority. Though the empire was shrinking and rivals like Britain and France were rising, Spain still remained a global player, but change was coming fast. In the early 1800s, Spain faced one of its darkest chapters. Napoleon Bonaparte of France invaded the Iberian Peninsula in 1808. The Spanish king was forced to abdicate, and Napoleon placed his brother Joseph on the throne. This sparked the Peninsular War, a brutal conflict fought by Spanish guerrillas, British forces, and patriots determined to take back their country. By 1814, Napoleon was defeated, and the Spanish monarchy was restored. But the war had damaged more than cities and armies. Spain's grip on its American colonies had weakened. One by one, independence movements broke out across Latin America. By the mid-1800s, Spain had lost most of its empire. What remained were only scattered possessions like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. The 19th century was a time of political chaos and division. Spain swung between monarchy, republic, and dictatorship. Civil wars, known as the Carlist Wars, broke out over who should rule. The economy struggled, and industrialization came slowly. Tensions between conservatives and liberals grew. Regional movements in places like Catalonia and the Basque Country demanded greater autonomy. By the turn of the 20th century, Spain was a nation in search of direction. The loss of Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines, after the Spanish-American War in 1898, marked the symbolic end of the Spanish Empire. Many wondered what Spain could be without its colonies. The answer came in the form of internal conflict. In 1936, a bitter civil war erupted between the elected Republican government and a nationalist rebellion led by General Francisco Franco. The Spanish Civil War was one of the most brutal and tragic episodes in modern history. It drew the attention of the world. Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy supported Franco, while volunteers from around the globe came to fight for the Republic. By 1939, Franco had won. He established a dictatorship that would last nearly 40 years. Political opponents were jailed, exiled, or executed. Regional languages and cultures were suppressed. Spain was isolated from much of the world during and after World War II. While the rest of Europe rebuilt and moved toward democracy, Spain remained under authoritarian rule. But change could not be held back forever. In 1975, Franco died. His chosen successor, King Juan Carlos, he surprised the world. Instead of continuing dictatorship, he supported the transition to democracy. A new constitution was written. Elections were held. Spain joined the European Union and began a new chapter as a modern European democracy. Today, Spain is a vibrant and diverse country. It is known for its art, architecture, literature, and music. Cities like Madrid and Barcelona are centers of culture and innovation. Regional tensions remain, especially in Catalonia and the Basque Country. But Spain continues to navigate these challenges through democratic means. It is a country shaped by layers of history, from Roman roads to Moorish palaces, from conquistadors to civil war. From empire to democracy, Spain is a living story of struggle, resilience, and reinvention. This has been the entire history of Spain, a land forged by empires and rebels, by kings and commoners, by swords and ideas. Through triumphs and tragedies, Spain has always found a way to rise again. Its history is not a straight line. It is a spiral of change, a song of conflict and beauty, and a reminder that every nation carries both scars and dreams. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through time, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below where you are watching from and what time it is there. I would love to see how far the history of Spain travels. This is then and their history. Until next time, stay curious.